fellas. So this is the first video of 3, all of which are focused on individual single-player video games, and they'll all amount to a final point of view on the current state of single-player gaming post-2007 to pre-2024 at the conclusion. Before we start, I would just like to say that 30 subscribers is 30 more than I ever thought I'd have, let alone deserved, so 40 might send me into a cardiac arrest. Please do not subscribe if you haven't already. Anyways, if you're adverse to gameplay spoilers, I won't talk much about the plot itself here, but gameplay spoilers, just slide that screen brightness on down to 0, and maybe consider being less of a coward in the future. Alright, so, diving right in, Evil West was a game that had been on my radar for a significant period of time prior to its initial release on the super cool and super inspiring date of November 11th, 2022. The first trailer I recall seeing left me with the impression that someone had finally done the unthinkable and made Red Dead Redemption, but with actual gameplay this time. Rockstar Games and their unforgivable shooting mechanics could easily send me into a tangent tailspin, so we'll do that another day, but anyways, I was way off. As more trailers were released and more gameplay revealed, I was ignorantly, I'll admit, left reminded of Doom Eternal with its glory kill-like health drop system, right tool for the right job gameplay loop, etc. What bothered me about this was that not only had I already beaten Eternal and both Ancient Gods DLCs already, but I'm of the mind that some games hold a certain place in the market or industry that smaller studios should steer clear of blatant mimicry as not to step into the ring with the state champ and wake up in the hospital with a generic tattooed on its collective forehead. Well, it isn't like Doom, really. That was a surface-level similarity that I, like we all sometimes do, used to draw a silly conclusion. From that assumption forward, I neglected to stay up to date on pre-release coverage until a week or so before launch. I started to adjust my expectations and looked on cautiously optimistic as the day approached, not opposed to some fast and fun combat regardless of the linearity and lack of plot. By lunchtime on launch day, it was met with lukewarm critical reception overall, with scores that reflected a polarizing experience that you were either all the way on board for or bound to walk the plank prior to seeing the credits if you didn't know what you were getting yourself into. Despite this, like every other functional game on the market, which is surprisingly few to be fair, major outlets gave it a 6, 7 out of 10, and 3 to 5 out of 5, or 3 or 4 out of 5, which really tells me nothing at all in my opinion. But anyway, I didn't buy the game on launch. I waited for a modest PlayStation Store sale before eagerly pouncing on the purchase. What I did not expect was that, even after getting clowned on in the media for everything from its outdated gameplay loop to its egregious use of motion blur without option to toggle on console, one of the most linear games that I had ever had the pleasure of sweating my way through was ahead of me. What Evil West lacks in originality, for all that it takes from God of War and Doom Eternal and Red Dead Redemption, the Arkham series, how you name it, any game, it makes up for it its unapologetic focus on what it is that makes the game fun and trims out everything else, be it due to budget or the creative vision of the developers. There is a certain admirable quality to a game that recognizes its own strengths and confidently asks the player to engage with them on loop rather than getting burned out engaging with what is blatant gameplay fluff to add to the game's runtime. Yes, I recognize that this is not a unique opinion, but that's the way she goes. Putting all hands on deck over a flying wild hog to sharpen combat systems and the unusual modern-day decision to embrace the linearity of the experience is a decision that granted Evil West its own personal identity and ultimately pays off massively in my opinion. For the record, I foolishly believed that, a seasoned veteran of games of higher paces, that I was capable of completing the game on the second highest difficulty. I think it's called hard. This was simply not the case. This game, of all other games, provided me with my first dose of what the hell am I doing to myself and why am I doing it moment in a long, long time. The moment that I begin speaking to a video game as if it is my mortal enemy and alive, and my arch nemesis, is always a moment of self-reflection. Why am I turning something I enjoy doing into a form of personal torture? Beats me, as I got to a certain point during one of the first few boss battles that I started the whole game over on normal difficulty, an effort to preserve the hard mode save file just as it was to preserve my sanity, in case I was interested in returning to complete that file. I currently have no plans to do so, as normal difficulty was plenty difficult, at least for me. It is, however, important to note that I am very easily tilted while playing difficult games, and apparently prefer to make it to the very end of encounters, victory practically inevitable, before choking, losing, and starting all over, now increasingly frustrated as the time goes on. This cycle continued until I finally said fuck it, and beat it on the average show difficulty, still not an easy task in my opinion. I used to play every game I purchased on hard difficulty as a much younger man, and nowadays I feel pretty beat up from those days, and I feel that I could rarely jump in on hard unless I'm really on one that day. Beyond that, I have started at least 5 of the Soulsborne games, of which I have completed 0 due to a lack of patience and the feeling that I'm wasting my time and trading my limited happiness for needless persistence. This is a trade I rarely make nowadays, as patience and happiness continue to dwindle as time goes on and I grow older day by day. One major strength of Evil West is the rate of progression almost guaranteed to the player as they pass each encounter and search for easily discoverable currency and collectibles. I found the collection of bucks to be immensely satisfying, for no real reason besides the fact that even a simpleton like me could spot and pick them up. But I also really enjoyed saying bucks out loud in my tough guy voice each time I collected any given amount of the weapon upgrading currency. Each perk unlocked feels at least somewhat significant in moment-to-moment combat gameplay, with the best perks completely altering the way the player approaches these encounters. Like many games of old, these encounters are obviously apparent to the player, taking the shape of massive open spaces just beyond some door or climbable objects. Personally, I find it almost refreshing to know what to expect as it approaches, as this is often not the case with developers in a race to surprise or even shock players to enhance player engagement. This game may offer few surprises, but it ultimately has no need to, in my opinion. What did surprise me, however, is how well the developers were able to scale the difficulty of the game, on the normal setting at least, in such a way that facilitates moment-to-moment fun through gameplay without stripping the game of challenge, and possibly providing the player with the opportunity to live out a Wild West power fantasy at the same time via enemy variety and design. This is a game that necessitates the option for New Game Plus, as do all linear single-player games with complex player upgrade systems. This is by all means the perfect game for New Game Plus, for players that simply can't get enough of the combat on offer, or for those that have few other games to play. Personally, I do not see myself returning to Evil West, at least not anytime soon. The sad truth of gaming over a lifetime is that, as game libraries grow, the value found in each game goes down. In other words, for lack of a better phrase, I used to play the shit out of my GameCube games because there was nothing else to play. I found immense value in garbage games like Nicktoons Unite and Creature of the Krusty Krab because there was nothing else for me to enjoy. It is difficult to fall in love with games the same way with so many options, and games rarely warrant a replay these days, at least for me. I love having as many games as I currently do, and I do not mean to complain, but for what it's worth, those with smaller collections that are bound to grow should enjoy these days as much as they can, because I sure wish that I did. Evil West is the most generic game I've ever played that is miraculously able to find its identity through a variety of impressive gameplay systems. With gameplay as the only strength of the game, in my opinion, outside of a solid setting, I feel it is safe to say that, while I enjoyed the game more than most games, this is in no way a masterpiece. Overall, I personally value the game at around $40, and I'll throw it a 6.2 out of 10. This is a pretty good one. 2 more reviews on the way soon, and thanks for watching. Bye-bye. The first winner is Thelvawal, sorry if I butchered that, who says, I may come back or I may die tomorrow, but I just want to say, I came here for an accident, but I leave knowing I found a friend, someone with the same dream as me, but with more courage and drive than me, and to that, bro, I salute you. Keep the spirit, keep the determination. This is a whole ass big world, and sure as hell you will find others like me that came here by accident but stayed for the long haul. It matters not the destination if you endured the whole journey, even if the whole world says it was useless. Well, thank you, Thelvawal. That is a beautiful comment and very encouraging. I wish you all the best, and I hope you can stick around for the long haul. Thanks a lot.